All right, so today we're going deep on Jeff Bezos. But we're not just like skimming the surface.
Right.
We're going to really try to get into some of the surprising stuff.
Yeah, it's always interesting when you start digging deeper into somebody's life story. It can seem straightforward from like the, 30,000-foot view.
Right.
But then there's all these twists and turns.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we all know that his mom was a teenager when she had him. But did you know she took him to night school with her?
Wow.
Because of the school's restrictions for teen moms?
I did not know that.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing.
And that's not even the most surprising thing. His biological dad was a unicyclist.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
Talk about an unconventional background.
That is really something.
It makes you wonder how these early experiences kind of shaped him.
Absolutely. Especially alongside his adoption by Miguel Bezos,
Yeah.
his Cuban immigrant stepfather.
Right.
Yeah, we're already seeing a blend of the unexpected and the diverse, like before he even hits college.
Totally. Then boom, he's off to Princeton Physics Whiz 4.2 GPA. You'd think that that's the classic recipe for success.
Totally.
Then he makes this crazy decision to leave it all behind and start Amazon.
Well, maybe not so crazy when you consider his regret minimization framework.
Right.
This is not some impulsive move. He was thinking decades ahead, believing that at 80 he'd regret missing the internet boom more than like leaving a secure job. You used to wonder if, this type of thinking is what separates the truly innovative from the rest of us.
So he's already thinking long-term, taking calculated risks. It's not just about the money. It's about being part of something huge, something that could change the world. And speaking of huge, can we talk about the fact that Amazon started in a garage?
A rented garage, no less.
Yeah.
Can you imagine the world's largest e-commerce empire starting in such a humble setting?
It's crazy.
And even before settling in Seattle, Bezos was thinking outside the box. He considered launching on an Indian reservation near San Francisco to avoid taxes.
Wow, that's next-level strategic thinking. And he was really transparent with his investors, too, like telling them there was a 70% chance of failure. Why would he do that? Wouldn't that scare people off?
Well, that's what's so interesting. He's not sugarcoating anything. He's presenting the reality, the high risk involved, and still managing to inspire confidence. It speaks to his leadership style and his belief in his vision.
So Amazon starts as an online bookstore. Simple enough, but we all know it wasn't going to stay that way. Was that always the plan, to expand beyond books?
Well, Bezos had a broader vision from the start. He saw the internet's potential far beyond just selling books.
Right.
He believed in this get big fast philosophy,
Okay.
prioritizing market dominance over immediate profits.
That's a bold strategy, but is get big fast always sustainable? I mean, there's got to be some downsides to that kind of aggressive growth, right?
Absolutely. It's a strategy that can lead to cutthroat competition,
Right.
potential ethical compromises, and a laser focus on growth that sometimes comes at the expense of employee well-being.
Yeah, I was going to say,
We'll definitely unpack those aspects a little later.
let's talk about that growth then. Amazon went from books to music video and then basically everything under the sun. But there were some bumps along the way, like that near bankruptcy experience in the early 2000s.
The dot-com bubble burst was a huge challenge for Amazon. Bezos had to make tough calls, closing centers, laying off employees. But he navigated that crisis and emerged even stronger.
Wow.
It's a testament to his ability to adapt and make difficult decisions.
From almost going under to becoming this global behemoth, it's a roller coaster of a story. And then he throws the Kindle into the mix. What was his thinking with that? Was it just about selling more books, or was there something deeper going on?
The Kindle wasn't just a new product. It was a vision for a new reading experience. Bezos wanted to create a flow state for readers, similar to the immersive experience of playing video games.
Oh, interesting.
He wasn't just selling a device, he was selling a feeling.
I love that. Selling a feeling. That's peak Bezos, isn't it? Thinking beyond the practical, aiming for something more emotional, more engaging. But he doesn't shy away from controversy either. That $600 million contract with the CIA was a bold move. And then there's his purchase of the Washington Post. What was he thinking?
Acquiring a major newspaper is definitely an unexpected move for a tech CEO. But Bezos saw it as a chance to reinvent a legacy institution for the digital age.
Right.
He wasn't just buying a newspaper, he was investing in the future of journalism.
But that raises questions, doesn't it? What are his motives? Is he really just trying to save journalism, or is there something more to it? Some people saw him as a potential oligarch. wielding too much power over the media?
That's a valid concern, especially when you consider potential conflicts of interest. The Washington Post reporting on Amazon, for example.
Right.
It's a complex issue with no easy answers.
From books to spy agencies to newspapers, it's like he's building his own empire piece by piece. And then there's space. We can't forget about his space dreams.
That's right. Bezos has had a lifelong fascination with space travel. He even talked about colonizing space in his high school graduation speech.
No way.
And that passion is what fueled Blue Origin, his aerospace company.
And he's not just dipping his toes in, he's going all in, selling billions of dollars of Amazon stock every year to fund Blue Origin's ambitious goals. Reusable rockets, space tourism, and even talk about building infrastructure in space.
And those lucky cowboy boots he wears to every Blue Origin launch. There's a fun little detail that shows just how personally invested he is in this venture.
Right.
He's not just a CEO signing checks, he's a space enthusiast living out his childhood dreams.
It's amazing to think about how far he's come. From that awkward data-obsessed nerd we saw in the early days of Amazon to, well, he's definitely not that anymore.
Yeah, his physical transformation is pretty striking, isn't it?
Yeah.
He's gone from the thrifty CEO in khakis to this imposing, almost superhero-like figure.
Yeah.
It's like Amazon's growth is reflected in his own personal evolution.
And that leads to questions about his leadership style. Is he the visionary leader who inspires his employees? Or is there truth to those world's worst boss claims?
There are definitely two sides to that coin. We've got his day one philosophy, the two pizza rule for meetings, and his unique approach to interviewing candidates, all pointing towards a very deliberate and efficient leader.
But then you've got the stories about the intense pressure,
Right.
the demanding work environment, and the high turnover rate at Amazon. It seems like his drive for success can come at a cost.
That's the paradox of Bezos, isn't it? The brilliant mind behind this incredible company also creates a work culture that many find unsustainable.
Right.
It makes you wonder if there's a different way, a more humane approach to achieving such ambitious goals.
And we can't talk about Bezos without addressing the elephant in the room, philanthropy. For years, he was criticized for not giving away as much of his wealth as other billionaires.
Yeah, there was a lot of talk about him saving it for later. But in recent years, he stepped up his giving significantly. The Day One Families Fund for Homelessness, the Day One Academies Fund for preschool education, and the massive Bezos Earth Fund to combat climate change.
It's a shift that's been met with both praise and skepticism. Some see it as genuine generosity, while others see it as a calculated move to improve his image. It's like every action is analyzed under a microscope.
That's the reality of being Jeff Bezos. Everything he does is scrutinized, debated, and dissected. It's the price of being one of the most powerful and influential figures in the world.
So what do we make of all this? Is he a hero, a villain, or something in between?
Honestly, it's more complicated than any of those labels. He's a study in contradictions, a visionary who can be ruthless, a philanthropist who built his wealth on a system many find problematic.
It's like there are multiple Jeff Bezos coexisting at the same time. The brilliant innovator, the demanding boss, the space pioneer, the media mogul, the philanthropist, the tabloid target. It's enough to make your head spin.
And that's exactly what makes him such a compelling subject for a deep dive. He forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about wealth, power, ambition, and responsibility in a world that's rapidly changing.
I'm hooked. What else have we got on this guy?
Yeah, it really does feel like we're looking at a puzzle where all the pieces don't quite fit together neatly.
And at the center of it all is this question of motivation. What is driving this guy? Is it purely a desire for success, for power, or is there something more altruistic at play?
Well, it's interesting to look at his stance on climate change in that context. He said that his goal with Blue Origin is to move heavy industry off Earth and into space, essentially, to protect the planet.
It's a pretty radical solution, right? It's like he's acknowledging that we've messed things up down here, and now we need to, find a way to escape the consequences.
Yeah, it's a vision that has been met with mixed reactions. Some see it as a brilliant long-term solution to a very real threat, while others view it as a way for the ultra-wealthy to avoid dealing with the problems they helped create.
It's a bit like that saying, vote with your wallet. But in this case, it's more like save the planet with your rocket company.
And you can't deny the scale of his commitment. He's not just talking about it, he's pouring billions into Blue Origin, making it clear that this is a top priority for him.
But then you have the other side of the equation, right? The criticism he's received for Amazon's carbon footprint and working conditions in its warehouses. How do we reconcile those realities with his eco-conscious space ambitions?
It's a difficult question, and one that highlights the inherent complexity of evaluating someone like Bezos. He's a man of contradictions, capable of grand gestures and seemingly blind to the immediate impact of his company's actions.
It makes you wonder if he genuinely believes that his vision for the future with humanity expanding into space is the ultimate solution, or if it's a way to distance himself from the problems he's been accused of contributing to. Let's circle back to the Washington Post for a moment. You know, buying a major newspaper is a move that doesn't really fit into the ruthless tech CEO narrative. What do you think he's trying to achieve there?
It seems like a genuine attempt to preserve an institution that he sees as valuable. He's talked about the importance of a free press and a democracy, and even referred to owning the Washington Post as a civic duty.
And he's not just maintaining the status quo, he's investing heavily in its digital transformation, aiming to ensure its survival in this, changing media landscape.
Right.
It's a move that could be seen as both self-serving and altruistic at the same time.
Definitely.
He's trying to save journalism while also potentially controlling a powerful media outlet. It's a tricky balance, for sure.
And one that hasn't been without its critics. The Washington Post staff have complained about low wages and job insecurity under his ownership. It seems even his seemingly philanthropic ventures are subject to the same scrutiny and controversy.
It's like every decision, every action is viewed through this lens of his immense wealth and power. Even his personal life has been in the spotlight. You know, that very public divorce and his relationship with Lauren Sanchez were tabloid fodder for months.
Oh, absolutely. And then there's that whole saga with the National Enquirer.
Yep.
And the allegations of hacking and extortion. It was like something out of a Hollywood thriller.
And the possibility that the Saudi government might have been involved in the hacking, that takes it to a whole other level. It really makes you wonder about the extent of his influence and the lengths to which others might go to try and control or manipulate him.
It definitely adds another layer of intrigue to his story and raises questions about the nature of power in the digital age. You know, who has it, how is it used, and what are the potential consequences of its misuse?
So where does all this leave us? After going through all of this, I'm still struggling to understand who this guy really is.
I think that's the point. He defies easy categorization. He's a brilliant entrepreneur, a demanding boss, a space enthusiast, a media mogul, a philanthropist, and a tabloid target all rolled into one. It's impossible to understand him without acknowledging all these facets, these contradictions that make up his persona.
Yeah, he's like a walking Rorschach test. People see in him what they want to see, what confirms their existing beliefs about billionaires, about technology, about the future. But the reality is much more nuanced than that.
It's that nuance, that complexity that makes him such a fascinating subject for a deep dive. You know, he forces us to look beyond the headlines, beyond the simplistic narratives, and confront the uncomfortable truths about power, wealth, and the impact of technology on our world.
So what's the final takeaway? What should we be thinking about as we move forward? Well, I guess the takeaway is there's no easy answer when it comes to a guy like Bezos. I mean, he's a force to be reckoned with. But what that force ultimately represents is still kind of up for debate.
Yeah, I think we can try to make sense of it all by looking at his actions, like his philanthropic endeavors. The Bezos Earth Fund is a significant commitment to tackling climate change. And his investments in education through the Day One Academies Fund suggest a real concern for social mobility.
But some would argue that those actions are just a PR strategy, a way to deflect criticism and kind of reshape his image. Is there any way to know, what his true intentions are?
It's hard to say for sure. Maybe it's a combination of both, a genuine desire to make a positive impact, coupled with an awareness of the need to, cultivate a certain public image. Regardless of his motivation, the fact remains that he is putting his wealth towards addressing some very critical issues.
It's almost like he's trying to rewrite the narrative of his life, shifting the focus from his business practices to his philanthropic efforts and his grand vision for the future. But can he really escape the legacy of Amazon, the criticisms of his leadership, and the concerns about his influence?
That's the challenge for someone like Bezos. Everything he does is seen through this lens of his immense wealth and power. He's constantly battling perceptions, trying to control the narrative, but ultimately history will be the judge.
It's interesting to think about his legacy. What will people remember him for in 50 or 100 years? Will it be Amazon Blue Origin, the Washington Post his philanthropy, or something else entirely?
It's a question that only time can answer. But it's clear that he's aiming to leave a mark, to be remembered as more than just a successful businessman. He wants to be seen as a visionary, a pioneer, someone who pushed the boundaries of what's possible.
And maybe that's what drives him, this insatiable need to achieve, to innovate, to leave a lasting impact on the world. But is that ambition ultimately a force for good or for something more destructive?
I think that's a question we're all grappling with. It's the question at the heart of this deep dive. We've explored his early life, his rise to power, his business strategies, his personal life, his philanthropy, and his grand vision for the future. And we've seen glimpses of brilliance, ruthlessness, generosity, and a relentless drive that can be both inspiring and unsettling.
So where do we land? Is Jeff Bezos a hero, a villain, a visionary, a disruptor, a force for progress, or a symbol of everything that's wrong with our world?
The answer, I believe, is all of the above. He embodies the contradictions of our time, the complexities of wealth and power, the potential and the perils of technology, and the challenges of reconciling ambition with responsibility.
He's a reflection of ourselves, of our society, of our hopes and our fears for the future.
And in that reflection, we find both inspiration and a call to action. A reminder that we all have a role to play in shaping the future, in deciding what kind of world we want to create.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of Jeff Bezos, I'm left with one final question for you, our listener. If Bezos' ultimate goal is to move heavy industry off Earth and into space to protect our planet, a goal that could benefit all of humanity, does that make him a visionary or a ruthless capitalist? Or could he be both? What do you think? That's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.